you're doing 100 calls a day for every day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week for a year, I guarantee you, you will make more than $100,000 a year.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of the podcast session. I have a good friend of mine, business partner. This guy is knocking it out of the freaking park over the last few years, and I wanted to bring him on for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's just one of the most genuine, awesome people I've ever met, but also he's crushing it in the commercial real estate world, and I feel like it would be super lucrative to have his 2 cents on a few things. That's what we talk about here on the podcast. So without any further ado, Joe Spinella, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Well, listen, first and foremost, you've been a part of now several $100 million worth of real estate transactions over the last few years. You've been in the business 5 years. And what I wanted to specifically have you on, because we're going to talk about your background in a minute before real estate, because I think that's a telltale sign as to why you're so successful right now. One thing we're going to talk about later on in this session for everyone just to have an understanding is sort of like the transitional phase of going from like a six-figure range in income, which he was able to achieve very quickly, all the way up to making now multiple six figures to seven-figure range. So Joe, let's talk about your background history. Before you got in the real estate world, younger Joe, were you always entrepreneurial from the get, or did this just randomly happen?
I would say I always tried to figure out ways to make money. So we didn't really throw out the term entrepreneur right when we were younger, but always hustling, always trying to figure out ways to create solutions for problems, right? Because that's what we really do at the end of the day. We find a solution, problem that needs a solution. And when you break it down and keep things into simple terms, that's all we're trying to do. And yeah, I always had the hustle mindset.
What was the first hustle that you had? The first thing you were making a couple bucks at?
First hustle, I used to mow lawns, shovel snow. I actually used to work on a horse farm shoveling manure in the stalls for $2 a stall. But that was good money then. That was good money back in the
How old were you then?
At that point, I was in fourth grade, fifth grade.
Hustling from a young age. I love it. My first side hustle, I had two things. It was in late elementary, so like fourth, fifth grade, somewhere there. And then like in middle school a lot. I would sell gum at like 25 cents a stick. And then I would hustle cookies, the big tray of cookies they'd have at the cafeteria. I would buy the whole tray every Friday, and then I'd resell them at twice the price, or it was like $1 or like triple the price. I don't know. I think it was like $1 a cookie, but I forgot what they were. But anyways, I love the beginning mindset of shoveling snow. I never got into that kind of stuff, but I had a few friends who did that. So after those for a few younger years, when did like the entrepreneurial mindset start sitting in, and what was like the first actual business you got into?
Sure, absolutely. I think playing sports growing up, that was a huge impact in my life. Being able to commit to something, being part of a community, working towards a common goal. I think that in every entrepreneur's life, they have some type of level of that. I see athletics is a huge background on that, especially for me. And then I also couple with the fact of working out and being involved in fitness, because that's a 24/7, 365 commitment, right? You have to be committed to your health. You have to be committed to working out, what you put in your body, what you eat, what nutrition you have. And honestly, getting in the gym is important as well, and making sure that you can time block to have enough time to do that over and over again, no matter what comes up, no matter if it's the holiday season, if you're busy with meetings, if you're traveling. That's been a huge part of my life.
Joe is jacked out of his mind, just to be kind. He's great physique. He's been crushing it in the fitness world. So talk to me a little bit about, why do you think fitness really layers in with the entrepreneurial world?
Because the main thing is delayed gratification. You have to be 100% focused on that, because just like in real estate, just like in any sales business, anything you're doing, the results the effort that you put in today isn't going to give you results today. It's going to give you delayed gratification results on the back end. Same thing with working out. You go in the gym today, you do 30 minutes of cardio, you do a back workout, a leg workout. Are your legs going to be that much stronger that day? No. But if you continue to do that over time, week over week, month over month, year over year, eventually, without fail, you're going to have success and you're going to get improvements. And it's the same thing in business. You start off with calls, you start off with prospecting, building relationships. You might not see the direct impact right now, but I guarantee you, months over months, years over years, you're going to see that. And that's, I'm a testament to that.
When did you start getting into the world of like the fitness arena?
Growing up, like I said, I was always involved in sports. I started specifically working out more hardcore and intense for a reason. I would say when senior year of high school, because I tore my ACL. So I kind of I was supposed to play sports in college. I said, you know what, it's not worth it at this point. I just want to figure out what my career is going to be and, really dive into that and put effort into that. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea even about real estate when I was 18. I just knew that if I applied myself and I worked hard, I was going to be successful.
So you start hustling the fitness world late in high school. And then when did you start competing right away, or when was that?
Yeah, so my first show was 2014, John Kemper Natural Eastern Classic. Yeah, I was 140 pounds. And
You 140 pounds?
while I was doing that, I went into business with my parents and we opened up a frozen yogurt store in South Jersey. So from 18 to I would say 23, that was my life, right? It was fitness, fit training, my own personal training brand there, did nutrition coaching before it was popular, before Instagram was a thing, or any of that. And I knew that if I could apply myself and I can go through a 16-week prep, a 20-week prep, and eat, sleep, and breathe, trying to get better and trying to work towards a common goal without cheating, without missing a meal, without missing a minute on cardio, without missing a workout, you begin to train yourself and learn to yourself that, hey, if I apply myself and I consistently do what I'm supposed to do every single day, you will see results. And you have to practice that delayed gratification. And again, once you do it, and you're like, oh, wow, I did this. I accomplished this. I accomplished what my goal was. And you're like, wait, if I apply that to business, if I apply that to relationships, if I apply that to anything else, it's going to work. It's a matter of it's 100% certainty. You can never fail if you never quit. And you might not be the smartest person in the room, but if you have unrelentless work ethic, you will be successful in whatever you're trying to do.
So let's talk about the transition then from like why real estate? Like what got you from the frozen yogurt world to real estate world?
Honestly, when you're looking at a small business, and I commend anybody that has a small business, it's extremely hard, especially with staffing and dealing with consumers. It's a lot. And when I look at the big picture, I said to myself, if I'm going to sell anything, I want to sell the most expensive thing I can get my hands on, which is commercial real estate. And I know that I can put the work in, I'll know to put the time in. So it's just how much do I have to endure till I get to where I need to be? And you just figure it out. You make ways to figure it out. So I knew I can go all in on something for the bigger picture. Right. I want to be, I want to be a present husband and father once that time comes down the line. So I knew I had to set myself up with different income sources and different types of strategies to be able to do that, so that I'm not having to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go, bust my ass in the cold, at 50 years old. I want to be able to support my family and be able to give them what they need.
I love where you said like you want to, you want to go out and sell the most expensive thing you could possibly get your hands on, because I feel like so many people follow their passions first, right? Like they're like, oh, well, I'm passionate about X. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to try to make a business out of this. And it's like, okay, well, commonly your passions don't map to a very large amount of financial success. So I just love how like your first thing is just like, I don't have to love it. I just want to sell the most expensive thing possible so I can make some great money, so that I have the ability to be a great, great father, great husband, great person on the back end. So I think that's important to note.
I think I agree with that, with the passion part. But I would say another level deeper, my passion is I love helping people. I love helping people, whatever that is. I love being able to be a resource, to be able to add value for people to be able to pick up the phone and call me, hey, Joe, I got a question. I need something. You might help me with this. Do you know somebody that can do this? Like, I love that. I get the most joy being able to do that. Mm-hmm. And you have no money in your bank account and you have no connections and you're not in a position yourself to be able to help somebody. You just can't. So that starts with that. And it also starts, it's a bigger picture. You got to take yourself out of it. You got to take your own passion out of it. It's a bigger picture. I want to be able to provide for my family, provide for my immediate family, my future family, myself, my loved ones. And you can't do that unless you're making a lot of money. It used to be 6 figures was the goal, right? $100,000. As a single guy, I can't even live a life with $100,000. So especially, in the crazy market and where we're at now, like there has to be more of a conversation of drilling into people's heads and kids' heads. Is the education system's broken, but they need to be able to understand that, hey, 100,000 isn't a lot, even 200,000 isn't a lot. You have to be able to be financially free and to be able to do the things you want to do and experience everything life has. You have to be able to set yourself in a position to succeed and shoot for a bigger goal than other than just what's convenient or what's your passion. Like, I love working out. I love working out more than anybody. I go to the gym twice a day. On the side, I write up meal plans and workout plans for people. I have a side company. And half the time I don't even charge anybody because I love being able to apply what helped for me to help them. And there's your passion. You could, give back and donate and do different things, right? I love helping people. We had a charity event for what's going on over in Israel, right? Raise money. We both donated thousands of dollars plus. Helping people's great, but if you don't have any money, you can't do that.
Like you're saying, I think that like the best part about it is when like your passion meets a fantastic financial opportunity, right? Like when those two things meet, I think it's game over a long run. And then you started mentioning around $100,000 where it's like, it's just not sustainable for people, right? So like as someone like yourself who made 100 grand fairly quickly in the industry and now, just having a several six-figure month, I want to talk about this a lot because I think that most people there's a couple misconceptions in this transition, right? Because I think that anyone in the commercial world can make 100, 200 grand, something in that vicinity, maybe 100 grand more either way. And it's not really a business, right? Like they're half-assing it. I think anyone can come into this industry and make maybe 100 or a few hundred and basically be a part-timer and do okay, right? And you can say that, that's amazing money or not. I'm not here to argue that. However, going from that to a several six-figure month is a very different thing, especially to do it consistently, which is why I wanted to have you on and talk about let's just talk about a few key points. We'll go through a few at a time, right? What do you feel like is like the biggest difference now in your business specific versus you when you were making 100?
I would say a couple things, right? Whenever I get a phone call, and I like to be able to be a resource to anybody out there that's, starting in real estate, has questions, because I know for a fact when I first started, I had no one to call. I had no one to ask. I knew nobody in the business. So it's scary. It's scary, to take the jump and to really just bet on yourself fully and, in a market that you're not really sure of. But I would say over time, the biggest thing, like I said before, consistency. You have to be consistent day over day without wavering 1 second. Like you have to make sure your follow-up was 1000% on point.
So let's talk about consistency because I just want to be clear about it. Let's dive into the specifics of the consistency. Calls a day. Like, do you think that's drastically different? Do you think that's the same? Where's the big difference between 100 a year, 100 a month?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I would say that I was personally calling probably about 100 people a day, and that was able to be multiplied by growing a team and being able to go ahead and turning that 100 calls a day into 1,500 calls a day by leveraging the team around me.
I like that point. Yeah, so let's talk about that. So it's just the multiplication effect, right? So this is just one simple thing, but I want people to hear this for what this is because I think it's important to nail this point down. Going from 100 calls a day, okay, which again, prospecting on a dialer, you pounding phones, just dialing numbers, whatever it is. Going from 100 calls a day, which gets you to 100,000 per year, to 1,500 calls a day.
One second on that note, I will say this: if you're doing 100 calls a day, you're making more than 100,000 a year. If you're doing 100 calls a day for every day, 5 days a week, 6 days a week for a year, I guarantee you, you will make more than $100,000 a year, because in commercial, it's 2-3 deals.
That being a minimum standard. And I know obviously some of our sales guys make, 400, 500 calls a day, hence their results as well. But so because I'm just trying to explain a point for a second. So it's 100 calls a day to get you to 100 a year, as an example, going from a younger version of you making 100 calls a day to now you, and obviously the consistency of the compound effect of making 100 calls a day obviously helps as well. But now getting to 1,500 calls a day, this is a 15x in effort, right? And I also just because I want to point this out where it's if you just change this one aspect, which we're going to talk about several other aspects in the business, and I'm just happy you brought this up because it's okay, this is 15x in one pillar of a multi-pillared thing in business, right? The output is 15x. So obviously, if you do 15x the output, you're probably going to get somewhere around 10 to 15x in results. This isn't oh, wow, really? No, it's but the piece here is how do you do 15x the effort without it 100% being your responsibility? So I said you talked about creating a team. What are some minimum standards you have for some of the agents that we have on the team?
You and I both, prior to us even working together, we had a lot of people on our teams. We worked with a bunch of different people, and I'm grateful for every single person that I've worked with in the past because everything's learning experience. But culture, vision, and honest work ethic, we're setting expectations as to what it is. I think a combination of all those things really drive that, right? Setting expectations is huge. And knowing what expectations to set is the most important thing. And again, that comes with time and wisdom and, trials and tribulations, and setting expectation. Hey, you're not going to make a penny for the next 6 to 12 months as you're grinding throughout, every day and, hitting the pavement. So if you set that expectation, and you have the right quality people, the people that understand what it's going to take to become successful, what it's going to take to have business, what it's going to take to take that next step. And as long as you have that hunger and that desire, I guarantee you can be successful with commercial real estate. It's the main pillar is you have to hold yourself accountable. 100% hold yourself accountable. If you're on a team, you want your team to hold yourself accountable.
Sure.
You know, everything, there's non-negotiables. Being on time, it's non-negotiable. Why? Being on time, all it is effort. If you can't make the effort to be on time to something, then that's a strike against you. Always be on time for meetings, always show up, making sure you hit your metrics every week, every day. Why? You know, there's going to be down days, of course, but again, that's what you need to have success. And to have success, you have to do what works.
I'm curious to also get your thoughts on this, and I think we might debate on this point. I'm curious to get your 2 cents. I recommend that individuals, if you need to first get to 2, 3, 4, 500 a year in income before you start building out a team, right? Because I feel like what happens is that your production personally doesn't increase because you get a team. What happens is that like you personally in your personal activity would not increase. Like you're not going to make more calls because you have a team, right? Like, so if your activity is daily activity, I'm not just saying production, but if your daily activity sucks, and you can't get past 100 or 200 grand by yourself, I'd say fix that first before you start growing a team. What is your 2 cents on that? Do you agree, or do you recommend something different?
No, definitely. I mean, listen, you back to the accountability aspect. The only person that you could 100% fully keep accountable is yourself, right? The only person you could fully control. And another avenue of that, you're the only person the only thing you could fully control in your life as well is what you put in your mouth as far as food goes. If you have a hard time following a diet, you're putting the food in your mouth, you're chewing it, you're swallowing it. So that's you holding yourself accountable. Same thing with making calls. Same thing with prospecting. One thing that I always say, I've never met someone that had success that showed up first and left last. And every single time while I was grinding, getting to this point every night, you know, every morning where I'd get to the office at 6 a.m. and leave at 1 o'clock in the morning just to go home to sleep, to run back. That's what I thought myself. And I was, you know, grinding alone those nights, and because I knew what it took to be able to get business done. And I was looking at different avenues to do that. But the main thing is making a plan, making that checklist, and following it every single day before you build a team or do anything. You got to figure out what works yourself, and honestly just look at the big picture and say, you have to get serious about your goals. You know, some people could say, oh, I want to make 400K, but are you willing to sacrifice what it takes to get to 400K? Are you willing to sacrifice what it takes to get to 100K? I'll tell you what it takes. Cut out weekends. Weekends is only a concept over the last 100 years. No one even prior to that, there's no even consideration of a weekend. You got to take out everything else and look at what's the goal. Okay, what do we have to do to get to that goal? What do we have to do to achieve that? All right, now let's do that. If you're serious about doing it, let's do that.
It's like, it's not a secret, you know, it's like, yeah, like there's enough people who have achieved it to be like, listen, like, okay, well, if you wanted to make 6 figures, you know, it's like, I agree with you. Like the week does not end for entrepreneurs, for business owners, right? Like a week does not end for everyone else, right? Like the week ends for 9 to 5 employees. And
I heard this quote that I love. If you want to not look at the price tag when you buy something, you can't look at the clock when you're at work.
Well said, my friend. I like that. And it's funny because it's like these days, it's like so many people are just like, what, you mean like I have to work 60, 80, 100 hours every week? Yeah. Like if you want a different result, you have to do something differently. It's like, think about it. For you to make $100,000 a year in a 9 to 5, you're probably going to be working probably 60 hours a week, busting your butt in a little bit in some sense, right? Like those are higher paid employees, right? $100,000+ a year. Think about like the CEOs of companies who make millions and millions of dollars a year. Their entire life is dedicated to these companies, right? If you want to earn, especially yourself, right? Like if you're an entrepreneur, which we all are as commercial real estate agents, like you're saying, mindset wise, I think is so freaking crucial to grasp your head around. Is like, you're going to have to work an endless amount of time, especially at the beginning of your career. And again, especially if you're going from like 100, 200, or the low 6 figures to the multiple 6 figures to 7 or multiple 7 figures, you're going to work more hours than you've ever imagined in your life for a season of your life. Really good point to bring that up. I appreciate that. Let's also talk about really quickly about the some other pieces that you feel like are different. Like what would you say like marketing wise is different, or organization wise or metric wise is different in your business now versus, you know, when you were making 100 a year?
Absolutely. So I would say the main thing, honestly, is tracking everything. You cannot make adjustments if you're not tracking, right? Same thing like playing sports. If you don't watch film, how are you supposed to know what you did wrong? Going back, I've been recording myself, trying to do, you know, as many types of additional metrics as possible, just so I can get more fluid over the phone, making sure that, you know, I'm saying the right things, asking the right questions. And, you know, we're all human, we make mistakes, but how we fix those mistakes, how can we, you know, be accountable to be able to go back and say, all right, you know, I did make a mistake on that. How can we change it so that going forward, we're going to have better results? That's one thing. Metrics for every aspect, right? If I'm specifically calling prospecting for warehouses, or, you know, going through our database look for warehouse, I need to know exactly how big the square footage of the warehouse is it, when was it built, and looking at all those trends, and you can see kind of really everything ends up making sense because numbers always tell the story. Numbers never lie. Keeping track of your metrics, tracking everything, that's the number one thing. I would say another, what was the question?
Yeah. So, well, before we go to the next piece, like let's talk about metrics for a second, right? Like, so for somebody who's not tracking anything, right? Like this isn't, again, beginning of your career, beginning of my career, like I wasn't tracking anything, right?
I was
It's
told
like,
to, I didn't.
so let's talk about that. Like, so like, let's take somebody from like A to B, and then we'll talk about B to C. Just so like, they don't have to get all the way to where we're at today, possibly on the tracking metric side, but like, let's just say A to B. What is a few things that you feel like would be really important for them to track right away?
I would track, again, I would track your daily habits, right? So
So you're saying like
again,
calls, leads, like
yeah,
what do you mean by, yeah, I just want to talk about like specifics.
I would track from the second I would keep a timesheet on it. And in all honesty, I would keep the timesheet. Second you sit down at your desk, I would write down the time or whatever that is. Whenever you start, prospecting, looking for calls, write down how long it takes you to prospect, write down who you're prospecting for, write down where you're getting that list from. Because if it's a good list, you don't want to be, punching sand, trying to figure out, hey, is this a good list? I keep calling this list. Well, maybe it's a bad list. We got to get a list from somewhere else. That's another thing. So after that, then we'll go and track how many people you spoke to. Okay, out of the people you spoke to, how many of them were sellers, how many of them were buyers. Okay, you take another level after that, then from there, putting them into a specific category, a CRM. Everyone needs to have a CRM. The only way to be able to continuing to contact people and reach out to them is having a CRM and having a database. And on top of that, if you take nothing else away from today, please take away the fact that take as detailed notes as possible, make sure you have the right contact information of these people's, and be genuine about it. That's the biggest thing of it all. Understand what the reason is, understand what you're looking to do and what you're looking to accomplish and what they're looking to accomplish, and see how you could genuinely help them. I've never once spoken about commission on the first through 10th call because it's irrelevant. Doesn't matter. The goal is, hey, how can I help Mr. Smith sell his property? How can I help John Doe buy a property? That's where we're at.
I love that you're bringing up, your daily activities, right? Like I think that that's just a really simple place to start. And I think it's also important to point out, like you can write it on a piece of paper, right? And then you can transfer it to an Excel spreadsheet. And then like over time, you can start adding to it, right? But the point is just get started today. Like you got his notebook. Yeah, exactly.
Notebook
Uh,
every day.
right? And just tracking, like, again, like I like the few things where like, this is important to get you like in the mindset of like tracking, which is like, when did you wake up? When did you get to the office? When did you start making calls? How long did you make calls for? How many like how many calls did you make? How many contacts did you have? How many leads did you generate? I think it's important to take down a lot of those notes. And I think those are all really good points to start tracking right away. What are some like difference in tracking now? Like what's next level tracking? Like let's talk about B2C now, which is like, okay, they're tracking data. What do you feel like now is a few other things that like you're tracking that's like new or that you feel like has been lucrative?
Where the sourcing is coming from, because we have a couple different levels of marketing, right? We have email marketing, we have voicemails, text messages, B2B, right? Referrals coming from other businesses, our affiliates coming from in-person events, referrals, right? So we got to be able to figure out where all these things are coming from to be able to make adjustments, right? So how about say we did an event and we got 100 million in business from referrals because of that event, and we only got 2 million in volume from emails and this and that. Okay, so maybe let's focus more of our time and effort on what's working, and the only way that we can know what's working is by tracking.
So
So
tracking the
that's huge.
source of the leads that you generate, right? So like on a daily basis, you get a lead, any lead from anywhere, track the source. I think that's very, very powerful and a good point.
You could paint the picture by looking at what the market trend is, what's sold, right? Maybe it was 70% of industrial sold, over that last 6 months in that county, and maybe 5% of it was multifamily. If you keep hitting multifamily and you see that's a common trend, you keep hitting multifamily, you have no luck, maybe switch to that other asset class because different times, different bank financing, different ways to get the deal done.
Follow the freaking, trends of the asset, the market right now. It's like if office sucks and you're in the office sector, change for God's sakes, right? Like it's like change and focus on where the money flow is, follow the money flow. For somebody who right now, Joe, is coming to you and they're like, listen, I'm a multifamily guy. I really do my one county. I mean, what's some pointers you can give for them?
And one thing I would say, as far as the stick to the one asset class, one thing, listen, you got to become an expert in something. You got to know the most information in something. I completely do agree with that. But the flip side of it, if you're working 12, 14 hours a day, your goal is to learn about that specific class or information on that, I guarantee you, if you apply yourself for a full weekend, you're going to know more than most people that just dabble in it. Learning information, being learning based is huge, knowing that. And, you can learn the basics of any industry, any asset class, where you can have a conversation about it. No questions asked. And really, the people that are giving you advice, I would say, are they in the position that you want to be in? Because if they're not in the position where you want to be in, and they're not making the money that you're making, probably not the best person to take advice from.
Our niche is investment real estate. So like our niche is as an asset class in itself, right? Like, so it's like, not prospecting for one specific type of commercial property, but like, specifically calling multiple different types or asset classes, but targeting one specific clientele base, right? Which is value add investors, of like where they can make money. Like instead of specifically focusing on one asset, because like I can't even imagine if we were only, focused on multifamily property, in one county in the state of Jersey, as an example. It's like, how do you expect to make several seven figures with that kind of mentality? I would think it's impossible. I don't know many people who make seven figures plus focus on one asset class in one county.
There's 95,000 industrial, retail, and multifamily properties in the state of New Jersey. You sell 5 deals, you're making 6 figures plus. Exactly. 300,000 plus. You sell 5 deals at a 95,000. In the last year, 4,500 deals closed in New Jersey. I mean, it's there. You just have to apply yourself. You have to put the effort in. Everybody wants instant results now.
Yeah.
Wants instant results now without having to sacrifice. And
yeah.
If you're take your business to the next level, the biggest thing is find that buyer that you trust, that trusts you, that is realistic, not looking for unicorns, that has purchased properties, 5 properties in the last year, that's actively looking, that you are, is well qualified. Find out exactly what they want, make sure that it is obtainable. That's the main thing. How many times people call me, oh, my investor wants a 10 cap. Give yourself more knowledge, learn more knowledge. If you don't know something about something and you're just a realtor and you're just trying to break into the commercial world, stop trying to do things on your own and partner with somebody that knows what they're doing. Because you might split a deal, stop coming and looking for 50-50, because it blows my mind. If you want to bring, I don't care what client you have, unless it's a listing that's 20% under market value, it's never going to be 50-50, because you're not bringing 50% of the value. Grinding for the last 5 years, trying to learn all information, paying, $5,000 to $10,000 a month in expenses to be able to pull this information and find these results. And, you need to be able to, I have the experience and I want to share that with everybody, but you need to be able to, know what the next steps are and know the right questions to ask. And when you have that buyer that trusts you and you find that property that he's looking for and you find that investment that he's looking for, it's a deal. The deal's done. You got the deal.
Figure out what like the size of the pie is that you're prospecting, right? Like if you're a multifamily guy and the pie is only like 20 properties a year in your one county, right? It, like that trades every single year on average. It's like, how much money do you actually think is possible? Like you're not going to get 100% market share, right? Like you're only probably going to get maybe 10% market share. So you close 2 deals a year in that market. However, when you expand, like you said, 95,000 properties have traded and you get 1% or 0.5% of market share, it's a lot of business. So like, I just wanted to kind of close that loop. So pay attention to the pie of the market, right? Like I think that's important to know what you're targeting.
And go and look and see who's doing it better than you, and see how you can either duplicate or create a better system to have success. It's genius. I'll go and I'll look at, you mentioned CBRE, all these other companies. We're running circles around them because they're not working. They're not hustling.
The type of clientele, which is like so many people reach out to me and talk about this one piece, which is like the buyer side of the business, right? Like the conception of like where sellers need to want to be, right? Where the sellers want to be and what a buyer's willing to pay is obviously this crazy discrepancy in this type of economy with interest rates being the way they are. And I want to talk about 2 pieces of this, which is like the type of clientele, which you had brought up, and then also what you're doing right now to structure deals differently. So let's talk about specific type, right? So like the type of buyer, which I heard you say, which I thought was important, which we talked about a lot on this show in my content, which is targeting investors who are active, number one, currently active. They buy properties right now, but you also said like 5 properties per year, which I think is important to point out, which I completely agree with. How active are they, right? They could be active, right? Like maybe you bought a property in the last 12 months. Cool. But like, was it a second home or are you actually buying like 5 or 10 commercial properties in the last 12 months? And like, where are those properties? What type of properties are there? And like, okay, well, this makes it now simpler to now go find it, deliver it on a silver platter. And they're like, oh, well, they have proof of concept that if I brought this to them on a silver platter of exactly what they've bought in the past, they're probably going to buy another. I like that you brought that up. I think that was super important.
Let's just talk real. Let's talk real for a second. When I was looking to purchase my first property, I was nervous. I was gun shy. Why? Because it was the biggest investment of my life at that time. So I completely understand that for, first time investors looking for a property, they're nervous. They're not quick to waive inspections or anything like that because they don't want to, they're
They're
treading
terrified.
lightly. Completely understand when you need to, put food on the table for your family, maybe those are not the best people to work with.
Especially in this economy. Like if they haven't bought a property in the last few years with interest rates at 2%, they ain't buying now.
Look who was buying the most when interest rates were 2, 3, 4% in 2021. Everything's public information. See who purchased the most property in whatever county you're in, whatever town you're in. Give them a call. Hey, if you don't have any buyers, this is how you do it. You find the most active buyer, you reach out to them and say, hey, I see that you bought 3 properties in the last 2 months. What's your criteria? I'd love to be able to send you some deals. What does
Well,
that do?
I've heard you talk about this a lot, actually. Talk about the CoStar reports that you've pulled for buyers. I think that's important to point out as well. Reanimate reports too.
If I was thrown into a brand new market, didn't know anything, didn't know anybody, had no connections, no nothing, the first thing I would do is find out what area is transacting the highest turnover and where the best deals are, and go on CoStar. You could pull those reports and you could see the analytics and the metrics of all that. That's the one thing. So see who's transacting, see who's doing the business, see who's buying the business, reach out to them, build a rapport with them, don't ask them for anything in return, but try to see how you can help them, how you could be, of value and be of asset to help them and genuinely help them find the properties that they're looking for. And in return, by making sure you're having these conversations and building these relationships with them, they're going to trust you and they're going to want to work with you. So when you find out that criteria, find out what that is, pull those reports to find who those hot buyers are. No investor is going to say, no, I don't want you to help me make money for free. That just doesn't make any sense. So, and then you go and, you hit the pavement and you go and start prospecting for exactly what he's looking for. And I guarantee you that time over time, maybe pick up the phone, you call them, maybe you email them, you figure out ways to get their information. You find them on LinkedIn, you find them on Facebook, you message them, you show up to, send them a handwritten note. A handwritten note goes a long way. Send them a handwritten note. There's about 10 different ways you can connect with them. If they're a really big time guy, maybe go and see where, if they go and post and see what restaurants they go to. There's a lot of ways that you can really figure out and get creative, build relationships with these top investors. And you don't have to go straight to the top right off the bat. Just, someone that's buying 2, 3 deals a year, that's fine. But that they're actively looking, they're always going to be.
I'm curious to get your opinion on mentorship and coaching for those people who are like, I don't know if I should do coaching. Like maybe it's a lot of money. I'm scared. Like, why have you done coaching? Why have you done like the mentorship you've done in your life? Why has that been valuable for you?
It's everything. It's everything. It's honestly the fast track to having success, because in every aspect, I keep relating it back to fitness, but it's a great thing. I have a fitness coach. He then goes and sends me what to eat, what to train. I know what to eat and what to train. That's the same thing over and over again. Having someone that knows more information than you to keep you accountable, that's everything. Now, relating it back into business, whatever line of business you're in, especially in real estate, one question can change the course of a deal. One comment can change the course of a deal. And the course of a deal means more money in your pocket initially and down the road. I was just working with a deal with a guy today. We were selling his $450,000 5-family in South Jersey. He ends up going and telling me today that he has 2 other properties he wants to sell. So the compounding effect of one sale is 100-fold of what it actually is, because other than just that one deal, maybe they have other properties they want to sell. Maybe you're getting leads from exposure from selling that property, knowledge that you get from doing that. If you were hesitant to pull the trigger on the coaching to get that first deal, to know what to say, to know what to do, the initial money spent on the coaching is irrelevant, because you're making 100, 200, 500x of whatever that is. So if you're serious about trying to really better yourself and make an investment in yourself, you have to hire a coach. I wish I could go back to when I was 18, 20 years old, but I wish I could go back and I could say, tell me what to do to have success, and I will follow that exactly. And we're telling you exactly what to do to have success. And if you follow it, you're going to have success.
Really well said, man.
Take advice from people that did it before you.
That's right. And it's kind of hard to screw up.
You talk about sports, Tom Brady. Would you want him to teach you how to throw a football?
Probably the best one to do it.
Figure it out on my own. Well, he probably knows more.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. It's like, I'll figure it on my own, Tom Brady. Okay. The economy is wild. 8% interest rates, crazy high debt service coverage ratios from banks. They want crazy high reserves. Like there's so many different hurdles that you have to overcome in this type of market. What do you feel like has been supporting you in closing deals in this type of economy?
So, the first thing that we we do every single time when we get a deal is we send it over to the bank, send it over to our lender, and get a scope from the bank's eyes. Hey, what does this deal look like? Where's this going to having to be? A lot of times now the banks, they're tight with leases. They want to make sure that the leases are strong leases. They're not month to month. But again, putting that in front of their face, in front of the bank's face prior to even having a buyer, that's, we're getting their point of view on it. So if there's any discrepancies or any issues that we have to, overcome, we know that going in. Again, setting expectations. How do you know the right questions to ask, the right things to do? By having a mentor, having a coach, someone that's done it before. But back into, what you said, it's extremely important.
What are some other aspects that you feel like you can talk about, like for structuring deals? I mean, like, are you doing seller financing? Are you doing like what other?
So the second level to that is, seller financing but again, knowing the right questions to ask once that comes up. So if a property is owned free and clear, even if there's a small loan on the property, seller financing has been the number one option for both parties, not just for the buyer to get a better interest rate or less money down, but for the seller. Because if the seller then goes and takes a full price offer, let's use $1 million property, they own it free and clear, we take $1 million cash. Now, what are they going to do with it? Depending on where they're at in their life, are they then going to go and invest that and use that after 1031 exchange into a property where the clock starts ticking? So you have to find a property that they're going to identify to put that money into. So, but in this market, if they're going to sell a good investment that they have, for them to go put an investment that they're not familiar with, it's an obstacle that you have to overcome. You got to really understand what their goals are, what the seller's goals are, what they're looking to do investment wise, and be able to kind of push them in whatever direction and suggest different things that could help them specifically for them, right? So in that $1 million example, if you can break it out and to say, how much money does the seller, Mr. Seller, how much money do you need down comfortably? I need to pay off this, and I'd like to, go on a vacation with my wife. I would say 150,000. Okay, great. He's willing to pay 200,000 now. Great. We got that 200,000. That's our down monies. Now the extra 800,000, what are you going to do with that? You were making money with that $1 million property. How much money do you need to make to be able to, be happy moving forward? Okay, awesome. I want 4,500 a month. I think that should be enough. Okay, great. So you structure the deal so they're making $4,500 a month for X amount of period of time, and then you make the balloon payment at the end. So say it's a 5-year at whatever the numbers end up coming out to be with the interest rate on that. The buyer is happy as can be, paying a 5% interest rate over time, because they end up having to put 20% down and not having to put 35% down that the bank is asking, having to jump through hoops, deal with all this, and on top of that fact, pay an 8% interest rate. So the buyer's happy, the seller's happy, because he's still making money, he's still making return. And worst case scenario, the buyer doesn't pay, get a lien foreclosure, they end up getting the property back with the 200,000 plus whatever he has in his pocket, and we're back to square one. So to me, it's a no-brainer. It's a win-win.
I just like how you're bringing up being creative, right? Like this just comes down to just being super creative and just not allowing someone to be like, well, the price is high or whatever, to dictate whether this deal can be sold or not.
You have to look outside the box, and you can't just put a title or a number on it. You got to say, if you really want to sell this property, what are the opportunities? What are the things that we have to do to make sure this gets sold? And again, sometimes the sellers might not like it, right? Maybe they're thinking the property is worth $4 million, but it's only worth 3.2. But showing them the value, showing them why, showing them, hey, X, Y, and Z just sold down the road for this. That's why we're coming up with this number. I'm not just doing it just to try to be a jerk, but that's one opportunity. Sending the loan to the bank, sending whatever the bank's response is back to them. Hey, I just sent this to 2 of my underwriters. This is what they said. So I'm just letting you know, either someone has to come in full cash, someone has to come in with a 1031 exchange, someone has to come in with 50% down to get this deal done. Just so you know, just so you're aware, I'm just setting expectations so that 30 days from now, you say to me, hey, why hasn't my property sold? I told you that it's going to be specifically X, Y, and Z type of person that's going to be able to buy it. But again, that's understanding the market, doing research. You can't just show up to work 9 to 5 in real estate business without doing any due diligence and understanding the market yourself. Like, you really need to educate yourself and, find out, different opportunities and angles to accomplish a deal.
Well said, my friend. I ask this kind of question for every single one of my guests, and I just want to bring some massive value to the audience. So Joe, let's just say everything was taken from you. You got no money, you brand new market, you don't have the database, you don't have the network. All you have is everything you've learned up to this date. What would be step 1, 2, and 3 to building it back to where you are today?
Like I alluded to earlier, I would say, find out what the people are doing, find out where the people are, that the caliber that I would like to be at, right? Are these, super successful real estate, developers and investors hang out at this area? Okay, awesome. I'm going to go there and I'm going to try to network my butt off and try to get in front of these people and understand that, I add value and that I can, help them achieve whatever they're looking to achieve, right? Then go find out who the, top buyers are, who the top sellers are in the area, build strong relationships with them, reach out to, affiliates and partners is huge. Find out, who the best real estate attorney is in the area and, try to pick their brain, the best financial advisor in the area, the best accountant in the area, and pick their brain and, try to send them business before you even ask them for anything. Try to send them a bunch of business. They say, who's this guy, Joe Spinella, sending me all this business? I feel like I should help him. And, that leads to other things. Leading with gratitude, leading with value. That's how you build strong, genuine relationships. And the main factor is be consistent and work your butt off. Show up every day and take out anything else that's not going to help your goal. It's either going to help you or hurt you. There's no in between. Look at every decision going forward. You got to have that main goal. Then it's two steps. It's either helps you or hurts you. And when you break everything down like that, it's really simple and it makes the most sense, right? If I wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and now I go and hit cardio and I'm at the office at 7 o'clock, I'm going to have a better day. That's a guarantee. I'm going to have a better day. One thing we talked about in the past, have that perfect day. Figure out what your perfect day is that's going to give you the highest production and that's going to make you the happiest. Write that down and just live that out, because you got to be honest to yourself. And when you're not honest to yourself and you say, oh, I wanted to do that, I should have did that, I wanted to do that, I didn't do that, that builds. Those things build. And it's the same thing with prospecting, the same thing with building a business. That's why when I said earlier, mindset. So you got to have a strong mindset, got to set your goals, figure out what you're looking to do. And whenever you're faced with decisions, say, is this going to help me get to where I want to be? Or is this going to hurt me? Going out with your friends drinking on the weekend when you have a presentation on Monday, or if you have things that you're looking to do to get better and you're not where you want to be. What are you celebrating? What are you doing? It's not going to help you get to where you want to be.
I love it.
That same $100 you're spending at the bar, you could then go throw that into a VA and or marketing or whatever the case is. So don't say you don't have the money. Don't say you don't have the resources. If spend that $150 a month and going to get a Mojo account. So, excuses, keeping yourself accountable, and you got to take those excuses and throw them away.
Really well said, man. Well, listen, I've enjoyed this so much. Where can my audience find you if they have some great deals in New Jersey, or if they want to find you, follow you, get in touch with you? Where can they get in touch with you?
My Instagram handle is Joey Real Estate KW, Joey. My phone number is 732-546-7501. And my direct email is joseph.f.spinella@gmail.com.
Listen, you guys, thank you for tuning in. Joey, thank you for your insight. Thank you for being the person that you are. We appreciate you very much. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed the podcast. We got some amazing guests coming up as well. Stay tuned for those, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everyone.